Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium Kelp Forest Exhibit, Cams. My name is Kristin. I'm part of the staff here at the aquarium. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning here in Monterey, California, and swimming into view right now is our diver, Patrick. Good morning, Patrick.
Hey, good morning there, Kristin. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in there. Hey, Anthony, sitting over there on the bench. Thanks for making us sound good. Hello, everyone watching there on the webcam and on the aquarium social media feeds over on Facebook, on Twitter, on Twitch, on Periscope, on YouTube. Thank you so much for being there, everybody. And yeah. Let's get going here, Kristin. I've got some breakfast here for the fishes. It's a little bit dark.
Yeah.
Here with the marine layer and the smoke. Before we get started in earnest, just did want to say that our hearts are out there with all of you folks out there affected by the fires here in our state in California, and also our neighbors to the north up there in Oregon, and really all around the world currently dealing with these fires. We're out there thinking of you on this dark morning, and probably going to be a dark day in terms of the lighting here along the coast.
Luckily, we've got some bright fish to cheer things up, give everyone a break. I see the bright orange on our male sheephead, who's coming right over to give us a big start there.
Yeah, the male sheephead was eyeing me from the moment I came in there, and trying to make sure that it does get, oh, hello, giant sea bass. So, we've been over this. We've discussed this with the folks online, so I don't know what you want to discuss right now, but we feed you during your training sessions. You get your own feeding and training. Yeah, exactly. No, you know this. Yeah.
I think she really just wanted to come join the cameras. We talked about all those platforms that we're streaming to. I mean, how can you stay away from the opportunity to greet our guests?
Exactly right. Yeah, she just wanted to say hello to everybody who might be missing her on the webcam. But yeah, the giant sea bass is currently being fed by our amazing staff, Kelsey, and other aquarists that are doing trainings with the sea bass to train them to swim over into some stretchers that allow us to give the giant sea bass a bath, because to control parasites that might be developing on their skin, we give them little freshwater baths. That's actually going to happen on the Monterey Bay Cam one of these days here pretty soon. You might be able to see those procedures. So when you see those trainings there with those blue tarps coming in, that's a training session there for the sea basses in here. We actually have 2 giant sea bass. And so that's why she was coming over. Maybe she was wondering if she was early to her training session. I know what it's like, Kristin, I'm sure you do too, with all these different meetings that get set up for you on your calendar. Sometimes you show up to a meeting like, was I invited? Was I supposed to be here?
Well, all those web meetings, she's getting involved. She's making things covered. And I did want to address something you mentioned. We can give her baths to help with external parasites. Now, that's something that happens out in the ocean, but here we can give our animals an extra level of care. And if you're curious about that, keep an eye on the leopard sharks we're feeding, because one of our leopard sharks I spotted has a copepod hanging on her dorsal fin. So that would be one of the kind of animals that we could rinse off our sea bass during a bath.
Exactly right, yeah. So, in the wild, you might have a few more feeders, a few more cleaner fish as well, doing their work instead of in here at the aquarium. But like you're saying there, Kristin, because we have the technology of having freshwater baths for the giant sea bass and for these animals, the extra level of care is very important. And yeah, a couple of these sharks have little trailers on them that our staff will go in and help remove in a little bit. That's right, leopard shark. And very quickly, we are in the middle of hashtag Elasmo Week over there on Twitter. So we are getting to see me hand feed some of our sharky friends here. And definitely check out more shark content out there on the hashtag Elasmo Week. For those of you folks out there, it's running until the 13th.
Yeah.
As I go to hand feed one of these ruthless puppy dogs. There you go.
Yeah, and of course our sharks are showing us the belly side, but the one who just rolled over, who Patrick just fed, she was the one who had that copepod. You can see the little white trailer on the trailing edge of her dorsal fin. So we got just a quick glimpse of her. Oh, this looks like this shark. She's trying to really live up to that puppy dog reputation.
Yeah, she came over to ask if she could maybe get a little shrimp as quickly as possible. Here you go. If you don't swim away too far, here you go. Nice. Yeah, so these leopard sharks, you can see them coming over to the window, kind of doing what would be their normal foraging technique along the seafloor, looking for mussels and snails, clams, other such things living in the mud. And, we talk about this a lot, Kristin, but the main thing you want to do when you're feeding a shark is make sure you don't get your finger in their mouth. And the main thing for that, not so much to do with your finger, but with a leopard shark, they have teeny tiny little teeth that can get stuck on my glove like Velcro. And then I just have a leopard shark at the end of my finger like that piece of tape that won't go away. It's more embarrassing than anything. We're just trying to look good for the cameras.
Right, and we don't want our leopard sharks to have that embarrassment either. Now, because you are hand feeding the leopard sharks, you're really giving our elasmobranchs some great attention right now. I know it's their special week, but what about the rest of the fish? How do we make sure everybody gets fed?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we do these feedings pretty frequently, and I also have in here about 20 pounds of food. So everybody who's hungry is really kind of come over and grab some food. And because these fish are cold-blooded, or they're the same temperature as the water that they're in right now, their metabolism, or how much energy they use, is a lot less than ours. And so you see them being very ravenous, gathering up the food here, but then a lot of these are just going to be fine for a few days after this feeding, and then the other hungrier ones will come over and get fed at the next feeding. So because these animals don't need to eat every day, multiple times a day, over time everybody gets a chance at some food. We also do broadcast feedings, which is when we just throw in. And this one gopher rockfish is just deciding to be right there in the middle of all the sharks. So the sharks have taken a few quick little nibbles there. So we have broadcast feedings, which is when we throw in food for everybody so that they can come and grab it. And that's also what my dive buddy at the other end of my hose here, Jamie, he's got a bucket of krill for the anchovy school.
Yes, so for some of the small fish, like the little anchovies, as well as lots of the babies and juveniles that are hiding up in the canopy, you'll see everyone swimming up all of a sudden. That's because Jamie's thrown that krill at the surface of the water. If you watch the small fish leaving the top of Patrick's entourage and disappearing out of sight, they're going to be munching on the krill that we just broadcast feed. So that way the little fish don't need to worry about competing with those big mouths. And
I just want to point out,
Yeah.
Speaking of competition between mouths, I would love to compete with our animals for some delicious salmon.
Oh, I know. I get really
That's
jealous
some
too.
restaurant quality salmon. There you go, buddy.
And that salmon's something that a lot of folks at home probably eat too. When we're choosing seafood here at the aquarium, we're choosing the same kind of fish our audience might like, and we're making sure to choose salmon that's caught or farmed in ways that's safer for the ocean.
Exactly right. Yeah, if you folks out there have not heard of Seafood Watch, that is a 20-year plus program of the aquarium. Make sure that we can have our fish and eat them too. It's all about sustainable seafood, responsible management of those resources, and we're well aware that outside of a visit to the aquarium or taking a look at our webcams, most places that people interact with fish outside of an aquarium setting is on a menu, and so we want to make sure that everything we're eating is sustainable for this generation and to the next. So head over to seafoodwatch.org. You'll be able to find out what kind of good sustainable seafood exists in your area, and those recommendations get updated as more information is out there. So we try to feed as much restaurant quality sustainable seafood as possible here. So, what you're seeing here in this bucket is the same stuff you might find on a menu out there.
And for people who are asking for that sustainable seafood and following our Seafood Watch recommendations, it's really been making a difference. I just saw you feed out a big prawn to a leopard shark, and we had some great news out of Thailand where the rankings for the shrimp coming out of Thailand just got a lot better thanks to working with our Seafood Watch program and thanks to people asking for that. So that public pressure has really improved the state of seafood.
Exactly right. You folks out there watching, you know that there's an election coming up pretty soon, so make sure that you're registered to vote. Make sure that you're ready to cast your ballot for the ocean. But, we talk a lot about how your money is your vote. And you folks probably know that where money goes is where attention tends to go towards things. So if you're spending your money on the good stuff, more good stuff will be made for people to spend their money on. And that's where your individual choice can really help shape where the market goes. It's also important to get involved and make sure that we've got legislators and communities that are working towards sustainability of their resources, just like the the fishing community here in the Monterey Bay has worked with the community here for so long, conservationists, to make sure that we have the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary and its fisheries protected and looking good.
Yeah, and that has definitely got some really good stuff in your bucket as a result. I'm just watching those fistfuls of salmon and squid. I love calamari. So, Patrick, I really relate to this question from the web. Looking at all that good stuff you're feeding out, I've got a new snacking habit. How do we keep sure the fish don't get fat?
Oh, I'm sorry. How do we make sure the fish don't get what?
Fat. How do our fish take all that good food in? Or do they even get fat?
Yeah, well, so yes, in an aquarium setting, that is actually something that that we do have to be concerned about, of fish becoming overweight with time because they don't have to work so hard for their food. So that's where our animal care team is so dedicated to tracking these animals individually, checking in on them, making sure that they're looking good. And one of the big things that you can do to help ensure that your fish stay healthy is by actually having predator and prey in the same exhibit together. You may have noticed that we have sharks and giant sea bass hanging out with anchovies and other fish that in the wild would probably become food for the larger fish. But here at the aquarium, where we're feeding everybody enough that they're not hungry enough to swim after their tank mates, but still maybe menacing enough to their neighbors to elicit natural swimming responses and behaviors. That's how you're able to keep all these animals fit, is just maintaining that baseline activity of swimming out of the way of that giant sea bass as it comes by next to you, or swimming towards that anchovy school like the leopard sharks might be doing. So that's part of the larger picture. But we do monitor these animals. We change their diet up if we start seeing a little bit of too much sea couch potatoes,
Yeah, it's a great multi-pronged effort there. So we're looking at their diet, we're looking at their individual health, and we're making sure they've got reasons to move, whether it's chasing their prey or running from their predators. So great summary there.
Did you say multi-pronged or multi-prawned?
Ooh, good one.
It was right there. I'm sorry.
Actually, we do have another question from the internet too. Some of the fish in here that look big around the belly probably are carrying eggs. I know we've got our fish spawning in this exhibit. Can you tell me more about some of the ones who can lay eggs here? Can we collect any eggs? What can you share about these?
Yeah, so, often when you've got a community of animals like this, if you're a broadcast spawner, it's a really good chance that your eggs are going to get eaten up. You used to be able to see that pretty well in the open sea exhibit. For example, when we had a lot of bonito, the bonito would start spawning, and then immediately you would see all of the sardines come up in that 1,000-strong school and just gobble up all of those bonito eggs that had just been spawned out. So in here, some of the animals that might do that would be like some rockfish might be getting rid of some of their larvae into the exhibit. One thing that is an adaptation for some of the fish in here that works pretty well are the surf perch. Like this is a young striped perch, rainbow perch over here, black perch, rubber lip surf perch right there. All of those animals I was just pointing out, they will give birth to live young that are fully formed little fishies. And so there are kelp perch in here that hang out near the kelp. A lot of those smaller ones are actually born alive in this exhibit. So that's part of the reason why you might invest in having a fully formed baby come out, because then it's more likely to swim away from the hungry mouths if you are that broadcast egg layer in here.
Right.
But maybe for Elasmo Week, Kristin, there is a fish in here that lays eggs. We can sometimes see the swell shark, right?
Yeah, we do have female swell sharks in this exhibit, and they'll actually swim up against the kelp and let the tangling edges of their egg case tangle up in the kelp to give that a good camouflaged spot. But they use an egg case to keep their youngsters safe, so that's a great choice. Sometimes we are, in the past, collecting those egg cases to hatch them behind the scenes, but right now we only have females in here, so we don't have to worry about catching any babies before they get into somebody's mouth.
Right, yeah, so those are also known as mermaid's purses, and I know that some of you folks out there watching online are sometimes walking around on the beach, and you find those mermaid purses washed up, sometimes from a skate, sometimes from a shark. So they look like these rubbery little casings there. And Kristin, I don't know if you just noticed, but just then we had a really good example of, I had a squid, I gave it to the leopard shark, and she bit down on it and was so completely full that she shook her head back and forth, took the head off, and then left the rest of the body. So got a very contented, very satiated leopard shark that was swimming by just moments before.
Right. I just want the tentacle part of my calamari.
Right, yeah, people do have those preferences.
Now, speaking of food, we are definitely feeding things in a bucket. Your food isn't swimming away. But I know some of our other exhibits around the aquarium use live food, like we feed baby brine shrimp to, for example, our seahorses.
Yes.
And do we ever feed live food in the kelp forest? Our guests online are wondering.
Ooh, it's a good question. You know, we don't, that I know of, have specifically live food come in the way that people might think. However, when we bring in new bits of bull kelp or wild kelp to help supplement the exhibit, bull kelp is the one that has the very long, big float, only the one float, and then the long, flowy blades off of it. And when those come in, they're often covered in living invertebrates that then many of the fish, like the opali right here with the white spot, or the senoritas, which are the cigar-shaped fish, there's the senoritas right there, those fish will go over and start pecking at those live invertebrates in there as a little bit of an extra treat. And then every so often there might be other invertebrates like that that come in as food, but no swimming animals quite the way you're probably thinking.
Yeah, bringing in that bull kelp covered with live invertebrates, that's also providing what we call enrichment to the animals. One of our guests online was asking if fish get bored, and, well, if they do, we sure don't let them. With the bull kelp covered in live things from the ocean, swimming around your predators and prey, I know we do a lot to make their lives exciting in here.
Exactly, yeah. Part of making sure that any organism is healthy is keeping it stimulated both physically and mentally. And, you know, often a lot of the unthinkingness that we might attribute to a fish is just because they don't have eyelids. They can't, you know, close them pensively, but they might be doing a lot of processing. So in here, by having predator and prey together, by having naturalistic looking environments for some of the fish to hide in, the giant kelp, obviously, the swaying of the water, lots is done to make sure that all of the fish in here have a good life hanging out here with all of us.
Well, we do try and make things interesting for them, which I think sparked a question from one of our guests. If we're trying to make things interesting, what's one of the weirdest things we've seen happen in here during your feeding dives, Patrick?
Oh, one of the weirdest things that happened here during this feeding dive, I gotta say, it's the, I've had both the Swell Shark just decide to come up and grab some food from me, and I had never seen the Swell Shark before, so coming up during a feeding show, so one day the Swell Shark was just like, you know what, I'm getting a cheeseburger, and just swam up and came and grabbed a big old bite of food there. And actually that was a moment where its teeth caught on my glove because I wasn't expecting it to be so aggressive. And then to have the wolf eel just swim out of its crack and come on up and grab some food there as well. A lot of those animals usually just hanging out in their crack waiting for us to go up to them every so often. You know, they just get that bug of just like, we're going out for dinner. I'm sick of cooking at home. And then they come over and grab some food. That's been very exciting when it happens.
Yeah, it's always a good change of scenery for us participating from the human side as well. All right, so while we're wrapping this up, because I see you're getting low on food, I know we talked about the wildfires and thanking all the firefighters who are helping around the western part of the U.S.
Yes.
Our guests online are wondering if this smoke and ash is affecting the fish or affecting the exhibits.
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's actually a lot of research going into figuring out just to what extent these kinds of fires can really affect the marine environment. The very shortest answer is that yes, it does affect the ocean. In particular here, our water quality lab notices that, you know, as the smoke and ash mixed in with the water can change the pH, the acidity of the water, and that can have consequences. So that's something that's being monitored. But one of the big, just obvious things that's happening outside of the physical makeup is that it's a lot darker now. The sun is being blocked out, and so there's a lot of plankton blooms that depend on that sunlight that are starting to die back. So you're seeing some better visibility for divers and clearer water. So that is one direct effect. When you block out the sun, you start shifting the plankton community around, start affecting winners and losers there. And that happens all the time out here along the coast with the fog and the marine layer coming in and out, but obviously with the smoke that also has big effects. So if anything, at the base of the food chain of the ocean, that limited sun is going to start having those effects and change things up. It's nothing dire or drastic necessarily, but yeah, a lot of research is going on that. Actually, if you head over to the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute's Twitter, at @mbari_news. They just came out with a quick little analysis of what might be happening out here in the Monterey Bay from some of those measurements.
Yeah, great follow-up. So if you want to get some more into that science, head to Mbari's Twitter. Or if you'd like some more feeding narrations, we're actually going to be feeding our penguins on the Monterey Bay Aquarium website next at 10:30.
Yes.
But anything, Patrick, you want to share in here while we're wrapping up our kelp forest feeding?
Oh, just hopefully you folks are enjoying Elasmo Week, learning a little bit about sharks if you're home students or lifelong learners about the ocean. And just the final thing, of course, is just we do hope that you're all staying safe out there with these fires all up and down the coast and all around the world where fires are raging. We did want to give a big thanks to all of the firefighters, all of the emergency personnel, all the farmers, farm workers, utility crews, everybody who's having to work out there in these often very difficult conditions. Really appreciate all of your work out there, and thank you so much for being a part of the aquarium community, maybe taking 20 minutes out of your day to enjoy a little bit of ocean before getting back out there to the work that you're doing. Thank you so much, everybody, for being out there, for supporting the aquarium while we're closed, and we do hope to see you again very, very soon.
Yes, thank you all so much for joining us online here, and we can't wait to connect with you again.